Hello and welcome to Kinship Worship. My name is Floyd Poenitz and I am the president of Seventh-day Adventist Kinship International. It's my privilege to welcome you today to the first Friday night Kinship Worship program, a program that's for us and by us. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Arlene Taylor, someone who's not a stranger to SDA Kinship. We've had the privilege of having her speak with us many times and do several programs, trainings for us. She's a renowned international speaker talking about brain function, just understanding the brain, understanding us better. And she's spoken around the world for many, many different venues. So we're very happy to have her with us this Friday night for our worship. Fear and anxiety are two emotions that we all experience. And tonight she's going to talk with us about managing fear for success. So please sit back and enjoy the worship, be blessed, and I'll talk to you when she's finished. Thank you.
Dr. Arlene Taylor.
Welcome, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So, managing fear for success. Do you know the most common mental disorder in the world today? Take a guess.
Anxiety.
Depression.
I think you're really hit it on the nail. Anxiety. The World Health Organization says it is the most common mental disorder in the world. Now I'm looking for my other slides. Where are they? They're coming. Good. I have an expert sitting beside me because I am really not able to talk and think and do my slides and everything at the same time. So it is also the most common mental disorder in the United States. Now, what does that have to do? Oh, there we go. What does that have to do with success? Well, according to the World Health Organization, anxiety affects 1 in every 13 people in the world. Imagine. But then you come to the United States, and the statistics show that it is also the most common mental disorder, and 1 in 7 individuals in the United States have an anxiety disorder. What does that matter? It matters because if you have an anxiety disorder, you have a large part of your brain devoted to the anxiety, and you don't have that to work on becoming more successful. Anxiety is a form of fear. There are hundreds of words for that. Worry, anxiety, all kinds of things. Most people want to be successful. I mean, who wouldn't? But they don't realize the most powerful nemesis. Fear is likely the number 1 cause of lack of success. So let's talk a little bit about emotions. This is what I call the emotional staircase or the emotional tone schematic. You notice that there's joy, anger, fear, and sadness. I only talk about those 4 core emotions. Uterine scans have shown that the face of the fetus during pregnancy will express itself in ways that at least recognize these 4 core emotions. Now, all emotions are positive, and I know that may be a new concept for some of you. 3 of them are protective. Joy is where you really want to spend your time. And then you have 3 personal assistants, 3 core emotions that are protective to help you deal with everyday situations in life. You will see euphoria at the top. It's really not a separate emotion from joy. It's just short bursts of extreme joy. The brain was never designed to live at euphoria. And people who tend to try to do that must get involved in some type of addictive behavior to try to keep them up. And guess what? They burn out. So joy is really where you want to be. Next to joy is anger, and that emotion is designed to tell you when one of your boundaries has been invaded, to give you a chance to perhaps reset your boundaries or set a boundary and move back up to joy. Next to anger is fear. It's a very powerful emotion. There's real fear when there's actual danger, and there's imagined fear when you feel like maybe you can't do what you think you want to do. And then, of course, at the bottom is sadness, which is aligned with depression. And that also is pretty common around the world. So what are emotions designed to do for you? I call them my personal assistants. 4 things. They get your attention, because when a strong core emotion arises, it changes your body physiology and you feel differently. Secondly, it gets your attention because it wants to give you information that it has picked up that you may not be aware of. Third, it links what's going on in your subconscious mind to your conscious mind. And that's how you get the information. And finally, it helps you make good ethical and moral decisions. And the more you understand them and the more you use them, the more likely you are to be successful. So let's specifically talk about fear, because anxiety is a part of fear. Fear is simply a signal that you may be in some type of danger. As I said, that can be actual danger or it can be imagined danger. And although there are plenty of times in our culture, in this state of the world, where actual danger exists, by far, more people get stuck because of imagined danger. Each emotion gives you energy to take appropriate action, and fear is no different. When fear arises, it gets your attention, gives you information, connects your subconscious to your conscious, and gives you energy to do what you need to do. Here's the kicker. Doesn't matter whether it's real danger or whether it's just imagined danger, you get the same outcome in your brain. And that's why it's really important to separate those two. Know when you're in actual danger and take action to protect yourself or the people you love. Or realize it's imagined fear and decide whether you want to hang on to that or whether you don't. So here's a cutaway of the brain. And you can see that there are 3 layers. Now, when they're all smushed together, that's when you see the regular looking cutaway. But I had my artists pull them apart so that you could see there are 3 functional layers, even though they do work together. The top layer, the cerebrum, or the third brain layer, is the only part of the brain where there's conscious thought. And much of that is right here in the prefrontal cortex behind your forehead. The mammalian, or the second, pardon me, the mammalian or the second brain layer is where emotional impulses arise. No conscious thought there. Just get the impulse. And in the reptilian, or the first brain layer, and it's called reptilian partly because that's all reptiles have. That's where you have your responses: fight or flight, tend, befriend, conserve, withdraw, and so on. So I chuckle a little bit sometimes when people tell me how much their snake loves them. And I go, it's a reptile. There's no love in the reptilian layer. Hello? You feed it, it's comfortable, it isn't afraid of you, they can act like they like you. There is no love in the reptilian layer. But there are knee-jerk responses to fear. What's the purpose of fear? To help you take care of yourself in the presence of danger. Without fear, you would not do that, or not do it effectively, and maybe not even be able to protect the people you love. But unmanaged, here's what fear is. It kills ideas. It undermines confidence. It escalates into phobias and even immobilization, and it reduces the likelihood of success. Biggest reducer. Imagine fear especially can create immobility. So when you want to be successful and you decide on a course of action, and then you think, oh, I'm afraid I can't do this. I just don't think I can do this. Well, what have you done? You've downshifted straight into the reptilian layer where there's no conscious thought, but there is fight or flight. When you perceive an imaginary fear, it is important to identify it immediately and resolve it. And you know that often our fears are ridiculous. When I first started public speaking, I would throw up before I went on stage because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to put across what I was trying to put across. And after 3 or 4 times of throwing up, which is one of my least favorite things to do, I took myself in hand and said, well, this is not a good way to start a lecture. So what's the worst thing that could happen? You momentarily forget a word. You don't remember what you were going to say for that particular slide. So what? You go on. And it is possible to get over those unrealistic imaginary fears. A couple of male-female differences here, just for interest's sake. Males are socialized, not to be afraid. And they're socialized not to be sad. They are not socialized not to be angry. It's okay for men to be angry. Those of us who are females have learned that in childhood. In my family, I learned that it wasn't okay for my mother or myself to be angry, but it was fine for my dad and my brother. And that seems to have carried on down through the generations to a great deal. So when a male experiences the notion of fear or sadness, they tend to stop at the step of anger, whether or not anger is appropriate for that situation at hand. So if you are trying to be successful and fear pops up and it's something you need to deal with in order to be successful and you stop at anger, you likely won't resolve it. So it's very important to identify the emotion accurately, get the information it's trying to give you, and move on. Well, females have a different schema. Females have been taught it's not okay to be angry. Got to be pleasant and kind and nice all the time. And if you confront danger, look around for some man in your family to take care of you. And they go straight to sadness. If you can't recognize and deal with anger, you don't know when your boundaries are being invaded. If you can't recognize and deal with fear, you do not know how to resolve that, either to take care of yourself or change the imaginary fear. And so now you're down at sadness, where depression lurks. And it's a long way back up to joy. So male or female, it behooves us to learn to recognize those indications that the body gives us that we need to look at something and take care of it. Candace B. Pert is one of my favorite neuroscientists, although she died several years ago. She and her team were the first to identify opiate receptors in the brain, and that revolutionized the way we deal with addictive behaviors involving substances and so on. She said, a specific neuropeptide. What's a neuropeptide? A neuropeptide is a brain chemical that deals with mood. She says a specific neuropeptide is connected with each emotion, so you may experience only one core emotion at a time, although you can rapidly go back and forth between them. And I've watched that happen. I have seen a friend of mine who was fearful about something, and when it was resolved, got mad because it had happened. So we can go between them quickly, but probably you can only experience one clear core emotion at a time. I like to call the emotions my personal assistants, because the more I'm learning to manage them, the better I'm doing in life. So I suggest that you think of your brain as a stage. And it really works because you and I are on stage our whole lives. We're usually where somebody can see us or hear us and so on. And we're on stage even when we're with ourselves. So since you can only have one emotion on stage with you at a time, you want joy. So let's say that you're on stage doing something and you feel confident and happy and, you're not jumping off the rails laughing or anything, but you're contented and engaged in what you're doing. That's what joy is. It's comfortable, feels good, helps your brain and body work in sequence. And suddenly you start thinking, I gotta give a talk tomorrow. And although I've prepared, I'm just scared that I won't do a good job. Well, guess what happens? Fear comes out from the wings onto the stage and sends joy to the wings. And now you really are in trouble because you will have downshifted to that reptilian layer and you won't know a computer from a coconut when you're trying to make a presentation. So what's the antidote? The antidote to fear is gratitude, because being thankful is part of the emotion of joy. So when you are feeling any emotion, and if you need to take immediate action, that's done, but you get back to joy by simply being thankful about something. And every one of us has something at any given moment for which to be thankful. I'm always so thankful for my media team that are finding my slides and handing me the right remote and just being there in case we have an electronic glitch. And I need them, especially for those electronic glitches. So as I said, joy and fear cannot be on the stage of life with you at the same time. So when you're making a presentation, and you've rehearsed, then you know what you want to do, and suddenly you think, will I remember what I want to do next? And you downshift, there comes fear and pushes joy right off the stage with you. So I keep in my mind's eye a list of things for which I'm grateful, so that if I can't think of anything I'm grateful at the moment about what's going on, I can always pull one of those and be grateful. And the minute I'm grateful and I tell myself, Arlene, you are grateful for, joy comes back on stage and pushes fear off. Now, those mental pictures are very helpful to human beings because sometimes you don't remember the words or the rhetoric, but you can remember the picture. So make pictures in your mind's eye of what you want to do and you being successful while you're doing that. And that's invaluable. So to manage fear, you realize it's one of at least 4 core emotions. There's a difference of opinion among researchers about how many emotions there really are. I only talk about 4 because they're so basic and they're so easy to deal with when you understand them. When fear arises, and you will know from past experience what changes in your body when fear arises. For me, the first thing that happens is my heart rate increases and my breathing decreases, which is not a good thing because then there's less oxygen to my brain. And if it goes on for a few minutes, then I'm going to get clammy hands. And sometimes I get butterflies in my stomach. Figure out for you, what are the physical changes that the emotion creates in you so that you can recognize it really, really quickly. So when fear arises, you ask yourself, is this a valid fear? Am I in danger? And you quickly look around to see what's going on in case you miss something. And you will miss things because the brain can take in like, oh my goodness, 40, 50,000 bits of information subconsciously every second. But consciously, you can only maybe take in 10,000. And so you cannot pay attention all the time or you would not be able to focus on anything. And you know this happens. You're driving to work. You know the way to go to work, you know, on the back of your hand. So you really don't even think about driving. And you look out the window and you check the rearview mirror in case no highway patrol is following you. And then you double check your speed and you know the drill. And then suddenly something happens. The car in front of you puts their brake on. And you probably have been getting a little too close. And suddenly you jam on the brakes and you stop within about 3 inches of the bumper. Believe me, your body is involved with chemical changes. Now that you're okay from protecting yourself from that danger, you learn that even if you're in a hurry, you're really smarter to avoid tailgating. And then if nothing happened, but you were just thinking about somebody you met the day before or so on, and it's an imagined fear, it can grab your brain just like a real fear. And then you look back at the road and you start going down the steps to the reptilian layer where it's fight or flight. If it's an imagined fear, you do one of 2 things. You immediately change what you're thinking about because feelings always follow thoughts. Or if you can't resolve it that fast, you tell yourself, Arlene, you are thinking about this at 5 o'clock tonight. Right now, Arlene, you are thinking about such and such because it's not going to be helpful otherwise. Now, the success quotient. I'm sure you've heard about the success quotient. It is a way to express how successful a person has been over their entire life to date. And here's the equation. IQ plus EQ equals SQ. The kicker is this. As valuable as IQ is as an academic skill, it only contributes 20% to your overall success in life. I still work on my IQ periodically because you can raise it from 5 to 30 points, depending where you start. But EQ is worth 80% of your success in life. So where am I going to spend my time? On developing emotional intelligence skills. EQ is not an emotion. It is a set of skills to help you manage your emotions. So I work consistently on raising my EQ skills because that will help me manage all my emotions, especially fear, and allow me to be more successful. And sometime we may talk about some of those emotional intelligence skills because they're real. And we didn't even really know about them until about mid-90s, 1995, when Goldman wrote his first book about emotional intelligence. And I'll tell you, when I read that book, it changed my life because I did not come from an emotionally intelligent family. We actually had a fair amount of dysfunction. And while you inherit your IQ range, you do not inherit your emotional intelligence skills. You choose to build them. So raising them will also help you deal with emotions. I want to tell you just a really short story because of all the places I've spoken and all the people I've talked to. This one was just so amazingly clear. I had just done a seminar, and when it was finished, this woman came up to me looking just about like the woman in this slide without the phone. And she said, "Could I talk to you just for a little bit?" And I said, "Yes." Okay. So we went over and sat down, and she said, "I've been very successful in my job." And she was a manager of a department. She was able to do a little innovative thing in the office that saved a lot of time and money. So her boss, her department head, came to her and said, "We're having a seminar not too in the near future, and I would like you to present at that seminar and tell people what you did, because I believe it will help other businesses." And she looks at me and she says, "I can't do that. I can't do that. I'm afraid I'll fail. I mean, that job is not for me. I need to stay right where I am." But she says, "I'm afraid if I don't do it, my boss will be mad and I don't want to get fired." So I said to her, when you say to yourself, "I can't do this job because I'm afraid I'm going to fail," what do you see in your mind's eye?
Good question.
"Well," she said, "I see a venue, lots of people. I hear them call my name. I see myself stand up. I have my notes in my hand. I've got them written out on cards. I see myself walking over toward the stage, starting up the stairs and falling. I see myself running my nylons. Now I got big rips in my nylon and my cards are everywhere." She says, I just leave the room in disgrace." Well, that is an imagined fear. I asked her, "How often do you fall when you go upstairs?" She said, "Never." I said, "Okay, that's an imagined fear." Well, she says, "What do I do about that?" I said, "You have to change the picture in your head, because your brain follows the pictures that you create by your words. And as you've told yourself all the things that are going to go wrong, now you have to reverse that picture." So I said, "You start like this. You've done your homework. You have your cards. You're going to enjoy sharing with other people. Why wouldn't you? Somebody's going to learn something from your experience." So now you hear your name called. You see yourself stand up. You walk toward the stage. You go up the stairs like you always do, very successfully. You still have your cards in your hand. You go to the whatever you call it, the lectern. You spread out your cards. You say to yourself, "Ellen, you're really having fun doing this." And then you start talking. "I don't think I can do that," she said. And I said, "Well, if you don't think you can, you can't. But I tell you, if you go home and you do this every day for the next 11 days and see only success and see yourself being successful, you'll do it. You'll get better over the years if you continue to make presentations, but you can do it." Well, She left, and I had no idea whether she was going to try it or not. You know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So I get a phone call. It's this lady. She says, I just finished my presentation. They clapped. I couldn't believe it. Her boss has given her a new job. She is now the representative for her company, traveling around making presentations.
Oh,
And she loves it because she conquered, she managed fear and learned how to be successful. Ask yourself what you're afraid of. Deal with it. Everybody has imagined fears, some more than others, depending on your background and your skill level. And those fears can hold you back. So right now, just take 4 or 5 seconds and identify one imagined fear you clearly have had or one you're having right now. Think about how it could hold you back from being more successful. And now you know the steps to take to get rid of those fears. Here they go. Create a new picture in your mind's eye of you being successful and be very specific. You know, break it down like I did with that woman. You hear your name, you stand up, you walk toward the stage, you climb the stairs, you go over to the lecture and you spread out your cards, you take a deep breath, you tell yourself you're really enjoying this. Be specific. Tell your brain how you want to be successful. And we know from PET scan studies, brain imaging, there are better ways to talk to ourselves than we have perhaps been using in the past. For example, if you say, I am going to, I triggers the ego. That's the first problem. And going to is future tense. That's the second problem. And the brain is not stupid. Why would it put any effort out now if it's going to happen somewhere down the line? It'll say, well, that is then, this is now. When you get there, if you still want to do this, I'll help you, but based on past experience, you probably will have forgotten all about it and just think how much time and energy I'll have saved. So you start with your first name so your brain knows who you're talking about, and you use the pronoun you because that keeps you out of the ego part of the brain. You only use positive present tense words as if it's a done deal because the brain gets in gear when it thinks it's happening right now. Stop talking about what you do not want to have happen. Because when you say, I don't think I can do this, or I don't want to fall, what's the picture that goes into your head? Falling. You know, the work by Daniel Wegner, Don't Think About the White Bear. What are you thinking about right now? And you actually program your brain for failure. So when I want to do something, I say, Arlene, you are remembering what you want to present. Arlene, you are enjoying making the presentation. It's all present tense. And the brain goes, oh, we are? Okay, fine. I'll help you because that's my job. So whenever a thought of fear crosses your brain, immediately change it to a positive, empowering, think of something for which to be thankful. Remember, gratitude, thankfulness is the antidote. And know that practice increases your skill and you build a bank of successes. And so when something doesn't turn out as hoped, because nothing's 100% successful all the time, you know what to do. You know how to create in your mind's eye a different picture. If you haven't read the story of Henry Ford, I suggest you do so. When cars were invented, he said, I want to develop a car that can be manufactured rapidly and that can be sold so that the average family could afford one. And people said, "Are you nuts?" And Henry Ford said, "I am building the car." If he had been alive today, he would have said, "Henry, you are building the car." And look what happened. Your brain can only do what it thinks it can do. And it's your job to tell it what it can do and use that self-talk style that brain science has shown to be more effective. I want to end with something that I just found day before yesterday. And since my slides were already done, I didn't want to create havoc back in the control room. So Anthony Robbins, you know Anthony Robbins. He says, with enough repetition and emotional intensity, the nervous systems can experience something as real, even if it hasn't occurred yet. And that's basically what we've been talking about. If you get emotional intensity about, I can't do this, I cannot be successful, you've already failed before you even tried. On the other hand, if you tell yourself, Arlene, I am doing this, I am loving it, I am successful, you have already succeeded before it even happened. If you have grown up learning unfortunate habits because nobody in your family knew how to deal with emotions, that's not a life sentence. You can start today. You can learn to recognize emotions, especially fear. You can have a pile of gratitude somewhere in your head so that if you feel afraid, you're thankful for something. And you can learn how to talk to yourself to be more successful. And I can tell you from the people I've spoken with over the years, I can tell you in my own life, it works. So go for it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Taylor, for sharing that information with us. I found it totally interesting and very informative. I know I prefer and want to live in that joy realm. I also often find myself feeling myself moving into the depression or whatever. And anytime I think of something to be thankful for, I feel my soul and my spirit being lifted from that depression back into that joy. So it's hard being thankful and still being depressed. So definitely that is some great information there. So thanks for sharing with us. Again, this is Kinship Worship. My name is Floyd Punitz. I'm the president of SDA Kinship. And if this is the first time connecting with Kinship, we're the only LGBTQIA plus organization that is affirming of the queer community, the queer rainbow community within Adventism. You can join us for Kinship Worship each first Friday night of the month, and will be available on Facebook and on YouTube. And this is available for replay on our YouTube channel, SDA Kinship INT. And to find out more about Dr. Arlene Taylor, check out her website. If you go to arlenetaylor.org, ARLENETAYLOR.org, you'll get links to all of her wonderful work that she has put together through the years about brain function, understanding ourselves better. And there's also some pieces on there that might help you understand the medical reasons behind being LGBTQIA or being perhaps non-binary, being trans, knowing what your emotions, what your attractions are. So check out the website and subscribe to her newsletter. I know that you'll be blessed with all the information that's there. And if you have any questions, You can always send us a note here, info@sdakinship.org, and I or one of our board members will get back to you and answer your questions for you. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All those are under the handle @SDA Kinship. And if you like something, please go ahead and click on like or forward the information to your friends and families. We want to get the word out that we exist and that we're there as a resource for both the Rainbow community as well as for pastors and church leaders who maybe don't really understand what it means to be LGBT, and give them some resources to help. Also, Alicia Johnston's book is available now. You can go to her website, aliciajohnston.com, and you can order the book from there. And remember that our Unclobber book is still also available for free if you'd like to give that to your pastors or to your family members, or just order some copies to give away for the holidays. You can go to our website, sdakinship.org/unclobber, and order the book totally for free there. So we thank you for joining us again for this month's Kinship Worship. We hope that you have a wonderful Sabbath and a wonderful month ahead. Be blessed, and please stay in touch. We'd love to hear from our listeners and answer any questions you might have, or welcome you into the community. You can join officially and be part of our lists, our WhatsApp and Facebook groups by going to the website and clicking on the Join Now, or going to sdakinship.org/join, and we'll get the information there. Thanks so much. Have a great one, and see you next time. Bye-bye.